Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm back with the 79 pace car. I've done a good bit to it since we made the last video, but a lot of it wasn't that fun. It was me drilling spot welds and melting lead out and stuff like that. We'll walk you through what we have done to the car so far, as well as what the process kind of is, and go from there. All right. So we already showed you the rust on the roof that we were having. I mean, you can definitely see it up in here. I posted on a few of the pace car, Fox Body pace car groups and said of me with the roof half off, and really freaked some guys out saying, why would you do that to a good car? And in reality, it can't get any worse, right? So on 3 of the 4 sides, I've already melted the lead out on the other side. We'll take you guys around there here in just a second to show you that. Melted the lead out, drilled the spot welds all along the back, the side, the front. Had to pull the front glass out to do that, of course. It's not that big of a deal to do that. And took the rest of the interior out just to get an idea of what rust we had. I knew, of course, that we had rust in the passenger floorboard. Previous owner had filled all the rust in the sunroof with caulk, and then that had cracked over time and let water in. So I knew the floor pan on this side was going to be bad. The front of the passenger pan is still good, so I'm not going to put a full pan in it. I'm going to take the center support brace out and section just a quarter of the back pan in and fix that. Now, this one did have rust in places I've never seen before, and I've owned, I don't know, several of these cars, close to 10, maybe a hair over. But the back passenger seat pan actually had rust in it. Now these change a little bit over the years depending on which years you have. My 88 and my 91 have a different looking pan than this. It's not as smooth. So, and of course nobody makes a reproduction of the early cars. It took me a while to figure out really why it rusted here. One would assume the roof, but the roof mainly drips right in the floor pan, not the back pan. The one thing interesting on the early cars is the brake line is actually ran for the rear brakes. The metal line is ran through the cabin instead of under the floor. And once I got the seat out, we saw something pretty interesting. All right, so I was looking at it and I noticed that it was a little wet in that section, which didn't make any sense since this thing was in dry storage and it hadn't rained since I got it over here to the new house. But I was fiddling around and taking the seat out and something, and I started to push the brake pedal and I noticed, hey, I found out why it was wet. So my assumption would be that the brake fluid, of course, ate the paint off, made it more susceptible to rust, and then rusted out in that area. But either way, I'm no more than that is. I think I'll just make a section for that instead of having to cut it out of another car or try to piece together something from the full trunk pan that you can buy for these. But back on this side, like I said, we'd already done a good bit of the work. So all along the back edge, took the spot welds out. As you ran a wire wheel through here, I found some rust holes that I didn't see because it had seam sealer in it. But anyways, these 79 cars compared to the roof skin that I have, which came off of a 90, actually had a lot less spot welds holding it on. And a lot less seam sealer. Like the 90 car was just absolutely caked in this area all the way down, just full of seam sealer. It was a pain to get off, melted half of it off. This car just had a little patch here, a little patch on the other side in the same spot, and that was it. You can see spot welds coming out. This is a lead seam in this area. I'll show you melting it out on the other side tonight and what that process looks like. But one thing that I didn't realize at first, and I found out on the spare roof skin that I have that's going to be going on this car, is they actually spot weld them, and then on the seams, they put a weld and they put another weld on it to hold it on. So if you don't get the lead melted out all the way or something like that, you don't quite see this, and you're trying to figure out why your roof won't come loose even though you have all the spot welds out, well, those are holding you. Like I mentioned, the later cars had a lot more spot welds on them. The early cars didn't have any spot welds pretty much from where the back line of the sunroof would be all the way to the back, whereas the later cars had spot welds all through here. Same deal on the front. You had leaded area, and then instead of any spot welds in this area, same deal. They built up just a real ugly weld on it. But the other side's still attached, but once you get all this off, and if it's a sunroof car, the non-sunroof cars have a brace down the middle, but if it's a sunroof car, that's all that you got, and boom, it's loose. So this piece I'll show maybe later tonight or the next day that we keep doing this video. This piece is actually separate. It's just spot welded here, and it has a little tab that holds it here. I've got a spare one of these off of another project, and we'll use it. But that's the only rust out that I've seen so far on any of the inner structure. So one thing that I didn't know going into this, because this is the first roof skin I've done on one of these cars, is I knew that it had lead seam, but I wasn't really sure where it was. So I just took the grinder to it, knocked all the paint off, and that's how I found it on the spare skin that's going to be going on to this car. But one thing that you could do if you had your quarter window out, you can see the roof skin line and how it comes here, and it's just a straight line to where it meets in the back. So you know that your lead seam, the center of it, is right through here. It actually kicks up just a little bit at the end, but anyway, if you started taking a sand in it and then took a torch to it right in this area, you know you're good. The same thing on the front side. And then you just take a torch to it and some time, and you start melting all the lead out, which this is what came out of one side and what I got. Another thing that's really beneficial, I started with some really cheap spot weld cutters, the ones you can get at like Harbor Freight or Amazon that are almost like a barrel with teeth on both sides of it. Then you can flip it around depending on if it gets dull or not. Those worked okay, but I didn't like how they were cutting, and if you had to go through like 3 layers of metal or something like that to free up. In this case, I was working on the roof skin that's going on to this. A lot of times it wouldn't go deep enough without bottoming out. So highly suggest if you do a job like this, get one of these. It's a just called a premium spot weld cutter. They make a world of difference. You spend $40. I've used this one bit on all of this car, whereas I went through about $30, $40 worth of the much cheaper ones. So spend the money, get the good tools. Always a good suggestion, especially if you're going to use them a lot. Anyway, so like I said, we'll show you how to do this one, and then I'll run the spot or get rid of the rest of the spot welds on this. I'm not going to show you the front one because it's just time consuming. All right, here we go. So just get you, in this case, I'm using a wire wheel. The wire wheel where the lead softener will mark it, and that's kind of the easier way to see it. Whereas if you take sand into it, it sands about the same speed as metal, so you can't distinguish it differently as well. But we'll just knock about this much of it out and then start melting. Alright, so you get it ground off there, take a torch to it, and just start melting the lead out. Definitely knock the paint off first, because if you start melting this and there's paint covering it, it tends to pop and explode on you. Ask me how I know. But anyways, we'll do that real quick and show you the rest of the welds on it. All right, so we got the lead melted out here. I'll do this front part here in a minute. But went ahead and took the wire wheel down this just to clean it up so I can see the spot welds. I went ahead and taken a drill to these to go ahead so it'll show better for the camera. But you can see a low spot, a low spot, a low spot, a low spot, low spot, low spot, etc. So those are your spot welds that you're trying to get out. Like I said, definitely spend your money on a good tool. And the other things that I use is a paint scraper with a butt end on it that you can hammer on. You don't want one that's plastic that you can't put a hammer onto. And I'll show you how I've been dealing with these. It works pretty good. So if you get one of these, you want to run it at a slow speed. You already got your little bit of a nick in it to keep it centered. Put it in there and get it going. Okay, so you can see it starts to cut it away there. You can actually see, and I'm sure it won't show on camera, but a little bit of rust in the top corner, a brown color, and that's actually the metal underneath showing. So what you don't want to do, of course, is cut through this piece, which is part of your structure. You want to just remove this little piece, the piece on top, which is your roof skin. But it's not quite deep enough, so got to go a little bit more on it. Okay. Once you're getting close, one thing that I do, because I don't want to have to fill a big hole on the bottom, take your scraper and your hammer, and you can go up under it and you can go ahead and break what thin metal is left there. And if it goes all the way through, you know that you're good to go. Like I mentioned earlier, these early cars don't have nearly as many spot welds. So despite having a bracket underneath, of course I haven't drilled anything out here, there's not a spot weld in a good foot right here, whereas later cars did. So when I put this one back together, I'm definitely going to go ahead and weld that. I think it keeps it closed and kind of keeps moisture out anyways. But we'll do a time lapse showing the rest of these, and then the roof will be falling off the car. Alright, we got it loose, or at least should be loose, so we'll go ahead and pull it off, see what we got. But, oh yeah. Alright, there we go. Easy enough, and do actually have some rust though. I knew that this bracket was rusted, but underneath it wasn't sure on. And a little bit there, but we can get that fixed. All right, overall, I think it's a success. So we'll, next time we'll be putting the floor pan in this side, and we'll see how that goes. Thanks for watching. Please consider subscribing if you like stuff like this and to keep up to date on this project. Thanks.